It was the kind of morning that looked completely normal. A clear blue sky stretched overhead, birds chirped in the distance, and the soft hiss of steam from a takeaway coffee cup curled on the dashboard. But inside the car, Maya's world was quietly falling apart. She sat in the driver's seat, her hands tightly wrapped around the steering wheel, her eyes locked on the dull gray building in front of her, City Heart's animal shelter. In the back seat, her golden retriever Charlie sat panting happily, his tail thumping against the seat like a soft drumbeat. He had no idea. To him, it was just another car ride. Another adventure. Another day with his person. 6 months ago, Maya would have never imagined this moment. Back then, things were tight, sure, but they still had each other. She was 22, raising her little sister Zoe after their mother died unexpectedly. Their apartment was small, their jobs humble, but their hearts were full. Charlie had come into their lives as a puppy rescued from the side of the highway. From the first moment Zoe held him in her arms, he had become more than a pet. He was family. He curled between them on cold nights, licked their tears away during hard ones, and made every burden feel a little lighter. He was the glue that kept them whole. But life had changed in brutal, unfair ways. The coffee shop where Maya worked closed down. She bounced between short-lived jobs, a waitress here, a delivery driver there. Nothing lasted. Rent piled up. Their landlord grew cold. And then came the worst blow. Zoe collapsed at school and was rushed to the hospital. An autoimmune disorder, they said. Lifelong. Complicated. Expensive. Medications, hospital visits, blood work, specialists. Maya sold everything she could, her mom's jewelry, her guitar, even her car. She skipped meals. Stopped going out. But the bills still towered. Zoe's face, pale and tired from the treatments, haunted Maya's every dream. And through it all, Charlie remained by their side, loyal, soft, loving. The idea came like a whisper, and once it landed in her mind, it refused to leave. If she surrendered Charlie, he might get adopted by someone with a yard. Someone who could afford the best food, long walks, checkups, and everything Maya no longer could give him. She hated herself for even thinking it. But the next time the hospital called, telling her Zoe's new treatment wasn't covered by insurance, Maya knew she was out of options. It was him or her sister. That night, she sat on the floor holding Charlie in her lap, tears soaking into his fur. "I love you," she whispered. "I'm so sorry." She didn't tell Zoe. She just said she had errands to run and left early that morning, Charlie excitedly trotting behind her. In the car, he stuck his head out the window like always, tongue out, eyes bright. Maya couldn't stop staring at him in the mirror. "Don't look so happy," she whispered, blinking back tears. "You're breaking my heart." When they arrived, Charlie wagged his tail, unaware of what this building meant. Inside, a kind-looking woman behind the counter asked, "Are you here to surrender a pet?" Maya nodded. Her throat was too tight for words. The woman handed her a clipboard. The questions felt like punches. Is he friendly? Has he ever bitten anyone? Never. Reason for surrender? Maya stared at the empty box for a long time, then shakily wrote, "I love him. I just can't afford to keep him." A staff member led them to the back. The air smelled of bleach and barking. When they reached the kennel, Maya knelt down and hugged Charlie tightly, burying her face in his fur. He wagged his tail, confused but trusting. She whispered, "You're going to find someone great, okay? Someone who can give you more than I ever could. But I want you to know I never stopped loving you. Not for 1 second." Charlie licked her cheek gently. And then she stood up. She walked away. Charlie sat, watching her go, ears perked, tail still for the first time. He didn't bark. He didn't panic. He just looked at her with those deep brown eyes, the ones that had comforted her 100 times, as if to say, "You'll come back, right?" Back in the car, Maya didn't drive. She just sat, staring at the wheel, sobbing into her hands. The back seat was empty. For the first time in years. She had done what she needed to do. She had made the responsible choice. But why did it feel like she had just torn out her heart? Inside the shelter, Charlie curled into a tight ball in the corner of the kennel. He didn't touch his food. He didn't bark back at the other dogs. He didn't move. He just stared at the door. Waiting. Days passed, and the shelter buzzed with life, barking dogs, chatting volunteers, the distant clang of gates. But none of it stirred Charlie. He remained curled in his corner, barely lifting his head when someone passed by. A soft blanket had been laid out for him, fresh water brought daily, but nothing felt like home. His nose twitched when certain footsteps echoed past, especially ones that sounded like sneakers on tile, the kind Maya used to wear. Every time he heard that kind of footfall, his head would lift, ears alert, eyes hopeful, only to lower again when the scent wasn't hers. The staff noticed. "He's shut down," a volunteer named Lila said to another as they stood outside his kennel. "I think he's grieving." Lila, a college student volunteering part-time, had taken a special interest in Charlie. She started reading near his kennel during quiet hours, letting her voice fill the space. Sometimes, she'd sit cross-legged on the floor just outside the bars, gently tossing bits of kibble toward him, waiting patiently. "It's okay, boy. You don't have to trust me yet," she'd whisper. But Charlie wasn't mean. He wasn't aggressive. Just distant. His eyes always fixed on the door, as if he still believed someone might come for him. Meanwhile, Maya's life spiraled. Zoe's condition stabilized, but only barely. The new medication worked, for now, but the cost came with brutal trade-offs. Maya picked up 2 jobs, delivering food during the day and cleaning office buildings at night. Sleep became a luxury. Some nights she sat in the hospital beside Zoe, her head resting on the edge of the bed, her fingers scrolling through photos of Charlie on her phone, his goofy smile, the way his ears perked when she said, "Treat," the time he had jumped in a pile of autumn leaves and disappeared completely. She missed him with a pain she couldn't put into words. Zoe noticed. "You're quiet lately," she said one night as Maya tucked her in. Maya forced a smile. "Just tired." But Zoe's eyes narrowed. "Did something happen to Charlie?" Maya's hands froze. "No," she lied. "He's staying with someone for now." Zoe didn't press, but her silence said enough. Back at the shelter, Charlie's story began to spread. Lila posted a photo of him on the shelter's Facebook page with a caption. "This gentle soul has been waiting for someone to notice him. He doesn't bark. He doesn't beg. He just waits. Maybe for someone who meant everything to him." The post slowly gained traction. Comments flooded in. "Such a sweet face. What's his backstory? Why hasn't anyone adopted him?" A few people came to meet him, hopeful. But Charlie never responded. He didn't wag. He didn't nuzzle. He just sat in the corner, polite but distant. And one by one, they left, choosing dogs with more spark. Months passed. Seasons changed. Snow melted into spring rain, and still, Charlie waited. The staff began gently discussing his future. "He's healthy," the shelter director said. "But if he can't connect, we have to think long-term." Euthanasia wasn't said aloud, but it hung heavy in the air. Lila fought against it. "He just needs time. He's not broken." One evening, after her delivery shift, Maya stopped at a red light and saw a dog peeking from a car window, golden fur, floppy ears, and her breath caught in her chest. It wasn't Charlie, but the resemblance made her stomach twist. That night, she pulled up the City Hearts Facebook page. She hadn't looked since the day she left him. And there he was, older, a bit thinner, but still Charlie. In the photo, his eyes looked directly at the camera. Not excited. Not scared. Just patient. She couldn't stop crying. That night she told Zoe the truth. Everything. The hospital bills. The decision. "I didn't know what else to do," she choked. "I thought I was saving you." Zoe didn't speak for a long time. Then she whispered, "You should go back for him." Maya called the shelter the next morning. "I left a dog there almost a year ago. A golden retriever named Charlie. Is he still there?" The line was quiet. Then a soft voice replied, "Yes. He's still here." It felt like breathing for the first time in months. By the time Maya pulled into the parking lot, her hands were shaking. She had borrowed a friend's car and barely slept. She didn't know what she expected. Joy? Rejection? Did he even remember her after all this time? Inside, the shelter smelled the same. The receptionist greeted her kindly, recognizing her name. "He's in the back." He hasn't changed much. As Maya walked down the hallway, her legs felt weak. And then there he was. Charlie. Curled in the same corner, eyes open, expression calm. She stopped in front of the kennel. "Charlie," she whispered. He didn't move. She stepped closer. "It's me," she said softly. Her voice cracked. "It's Maya." Charlie slowly lifted his head. His ears twitched. His eyes locked on hers. For one long second, nothing happened. Then he stood. His tail didn't wag wildly. He didn't leap or bark. He simply walked to the edge of the kennel, pressed his nose through the bars, and leaned into her palm as she reached out, trembling. It was as if the time had melted away, and he knew. He remembered. Maya sank to her knees, sobbing, as Charlie gently licked her fingers. "I'm so sorry," she whispered over and over. "I missed you. I never stopped thinking about you." Behind them, Lila wiped away tears. "I guess he was waiting for someone after all," she said quietly. They let Maya take him home that day. As they stepped outside, Charlie paused at the car, sniffed the air, then jumped into the back seat like he had never left. Maya slid behind the wheel, heart pounding. She looked at him in the mirror. "Ready to go home?" He wagged his tail once, soft but steady. And just like that, they drove off together, not as two people trying to survive, but as a family finding their way back. Charlie's return home felt like the sun rising after a long, cold night. But home had changed. The apartment was smaller now, only one bedroom instead of two. The furniture was different, cheaper, worn out in some places, with mismatched colors and a shaky coffee table, but Charlie didn't care. The moment his paws touched the carpet, he sniffed every corner like it was a royal palace. His tail moved slowly at first, as if unsure if he was truly allowed to be happy again. Then he found the spot near the window where the sun hit the floor in the afternoon. He lay down with a deep sigh, his eyes soft, his body finally at rest. Zoe came home from the hospital 2 days later. Her legs were weaker than before, and she needed a walker now. But her smile lit up the room the second she saw him. "Charlie," she whispered from the doorway. He lifted his head, ears alert. Then she giggled and his tail thumped the floor. "You're really back," she said, stepping carefully toward him. Charlie stood up slowly and walked to her, his head tilted as if he remembered every bedtime story she'd once read to him, every treat snuck from her lunchbox, every time she'd leaned on him after a hard day. He nuzzled her hand, and Zoe broke into tears. She wrapped her arms around him as best as she could, and he just stood there, letting her cry into his fur. That night, the three of them sat on the floor eating instant noodles and cookies. Maya looked tired, her eyes puffy from all the crying she had done, but there was something new in her face too, peace. She hadn't felt that in a long time. Charlie curled up beside her, his head resting gently on her knee. She kept her hand on his back, running her fingers through his golden fur like she was trying to remember it all. "I'm going to make this right," she whispered. And she meant it. The next few weeks weren't easy. Charlie needed time to adjust again. Sometimes, he would flinch at loud noises. Once, when Maya left to run an errand and came back an hour later, she found Charlie standing by the door, frozen, like he feared she wouldn't return. "I'm not leaving again," she said, kneeling down beside him. "I promise." Zoe noticed it too. Charlie followed them everywhere now, not out of curiosity, but out of quiet fear. If Maya was in the kitchen, he was at her feet. If Zoe went to the bathroom, he waited outside the door. "He's scared we'll vanish again," she told her mom. Maya nodded. "He doesn't know it's over yet, the waiting." But slowly he began to heal. Maya took him on short walks at first, just around the block. He walked close to her side, glancing up every few steps, as if checking to make sure she was still there. Then one day, a squirrel ran across their path, and Charlie chased after it like a puppy. His tail wagged wildly, his bark echoing through the air, and Maya laughed for the first time in months. "There you are," she whispered. "There's my boy." Zoe began reading to him again. Every night, she sat on her bed, her legs curled under a blanket, Charlie lying beside her as she opened another chapter. It became their new bedtime routine. "He listens better than most people," she joked. Maya would sit quietly in the hallway, just outside the room, listening to the soft hum of her daughter's voice and the gentle rustle of book pages. Those small sounds felt like music, proof that their broken family was slowly being put back together. One Saturday, Maya took Charlie to the park. Not the one near their apartment, but the big one across town, where they used to go before everything fell apart. The moment he saw it, Charlie pulled on the leash. He sniffed the trees, ran through the grass, chased butterflies, and lay under a bench like he remembered it all. An older woman passing by smiled at Maya. "He's got that look in his eyes," she said. "The look dogs get when they finally come home." Maya smiled back. He never forgot it. But just as things began to feel normal again, an envelope arrived in the mail. It was from the shelter. Inside was a printed letter, kind, gentle, but very clear. It reminded Maya of the adoption rules. Technically, she had surrendered to Charlie. And technically, she wasn't supposed to get him back without completing a new adoption process, including a background check, home visit, and approval from the board. "We understand your situation," the letter read, "but protocol must be followed." Maya's heart dropped. She hadn't thought of that. Everything had happened so fast. When she showed up that day, the staff had been kind, moved by the reunion. They'd let her take him without asking questions. But now someone in the system had noticed. "I can't lose him again," she said, her hands shaking. Zoe clutched Charlie's collar. "We won't let them take him." The next day, Maya returned to the shelter, not as someone broken, but as someone ready to fight. Lila greeted her at the door. "I heard about the letter," she said softly. "Don't worry. You have support." And she did. Because something had changed since Maya last came here. Lila had kept sharing Charlie's story, his weight, his pain, his quiet hope. Thousands had seen the posts. Dozens had left comments. Some had even visited him. People cared. Lila helped Maya file the paperwork. She called the director personally, vouching for Maya's character. Other volunteers wrote letters. Zoe drew a picture of Charlie with the words, "He's part of our family," scrawled across the top. Maya poured her heart into every form. She explained everything, Zoe's illness, the choice she made, the guilt she carried. "I made a mistake," she wrote, "but not a careless one. I never stopped loving him. Please give me the chance to make this right." It took 3 weeks. 3 long weeks of silence, of checking the mailbox every day, of holding Charlie a little tighter each night. Then the call came. Lila's voice was bright. "You're approved. He's yours." Maya dropped the phone and cried on the kitchen floor, Charlie licking her tears. Charlie was finally, officially home. No more fears. No more questions. No more wondering if someone would knock on the door and take him away again. Maya framed the letter of approval from the shelter and hung it in the hallway, right next to Zoe's drawing. It wasn't just a paper, it was proof. Proof that love can return. Those mistakes can be forgiven. That second chance exists if you fight hard enough for them. That week, Maya took Charlie to the vet for a full checkup. His legs were strong, but a little stiff, nothing some walks and joint vitamins couldn't fix. His eyes were a little cloudier than before, but still bright when he looked at Zoe. He had a few new scars, ones Maya hadn't noticed before, tiny ones near his ear and on his belly. She didn't ask questions. Whatever had happened in those shelter nights, it was behind him now. The vet said something that stuck with Maya. He's older now, but he still has time. He just needs love and stability. That's what keeps them young. So Maya made a promise to herself. Every day Charlie had left would be filled with peace, safety, and warmth. He would never again feel abandoned. Never again feel unwanted. Never again feel like he had to wait by a gate for love to return. And for a while, everything was just calm. Zoe's health stabilized. She still had tough days, but the worst had passed. Her school sent a tutor who visited twice a week. Charlie always sat at her feet while she studied, like he was her personal bodyguard. She began drawing again, pages and pages of Charlie in superhero costumes, Charlie with a crown, Charlie riding a rocket into the stars. In each picture he looked proud, brave. "Why do you always draw him like that?" Maya asked one night. Zoe smiled. "Because he's not just a dog. He's a fighter." And it was true. Charlie had fought in silence. No barking. No anger. Just quiet, patient waiting. That kind of strength was rare. Not loud or flashy, but real. One afternoon, something unexpected happened. Zoe's tutor brought over her young daughter, just for a few minutes. She was off school today, the tutor said. I hope it's okay. Of course, Maya replied. The little girl was shy at first. She stood near the door, clutching her stuffed rabbit. Then she saw Charlie. Her eyes lit up, and without a word, she walked toward him. Charlie looked at her. Then, as if sensing her gentle nature, he lay down slowly and put his head on his paws. She sat beside him and began stroking his fur. By the end of the session, she was giggling, whispering secrets into Charlie's floppy ears. Her mother was stunned. She's usually so quiet. This is the most I've seen her open up in weeks. That night, Maya sat with Charlie, her hand resting on his back. You have a gift, don't you? She whispered. You don't just heal, you help others heal too. The next morning, she had an idea. It started as a thought, a tiny flicker. But by the next week, it had grown into something real. She signed Charlie up for therapy dog training. It wasn't easy. Charlie was calm, yes, but the training required more than just a gentle soul. He had to learn commands, follow cues, remain calm in loud spaces, and ignore distractions. At first, Maya wasn't sure if it was the right decision. After all, hadn't he already been through enough? But something in Charlie changed when he put on the little blue vest marked, "In training." His posture straightened. His ears perked up. He seemed proud. And Maya realized something. Charlie didn't just want a home. He wanted a purpose. They trained for 3 months. Every weekend, Zoe came along too, cheering him on from the sidelines. You're the best boy in the whole world, she'd yell after every session. And then came the final test. It was held in a busy building filled with other dogs, barking and moving everywhere. Charlie stayed calm. A man dropped a loud book on the floor. Charlie didn't flinch. A child ran past, waving a toy. Charlie just watched. When Maya gave him the sit command, he sat. When she said, stay, he stayed. At the end of the test, the evaluator knelt beside him and looked into his eyes. He's seen pain, she said softly, but he didn't let it break him. That's the kind of dog we need. Charlie passed. A few weeks later, he got his official badge and a new vest. Certified therapy dog. Maya cried when she opened the envelope. Zoe danced around the kitchen. Charlie just tilted his head and barked once, like he knew. Their first official visit was to a nursing home. Maya was nervous. Zoe stayed back with a neighbor, so it was just her and Charlie. As they walked through the halls, people peeked from doorways. Some waved. Some looked away. But the moment Charlie entered a room, something shifted. Eyes lit up. Hands reached out. A woman who hadn't spoken in weeks whispered, "Beautiful boy." Charlie moved slowly, calmly. He didn't bark or jump. He simply sat beside each person, letting them pet him, rest their hands on him, and feel his warmth. Some cried. Some smiled. Some just stared at him as if trying to remember something from long ago. By the time they left, the staff was already asking when he'd return. And he did. Week after week, Charlie brought joy into places filled with silence. Hospitals. Schools. Rehab centers. He became a friend to the lonely, a comfort to the anxious, a light in dark rooms. People often asked Maya his story. She never told the full truth. Not all of it. Just enough. He waited for someone who once left him, she'd say. And now he helps others who are still waiting, for healing, for love, for hope. But there was one visit that stayed with her forever. It was a children's hospital. Charlie had been there a few times, always bringing smiles. But this time, a nurse pulled Maya aside. "There's a girl," she whispered. "She hasn't spoken in over a month. Maybe your dog could try." The room was quiet. The little girl lay curled on her bed, facing the wall. Maya waited at the door. Then she whispered, "Go on, Charlie." He patted into the room gently, his nails soft against the tile. He didn't bark. He didn't rush. He simply walked to the bed and lay down beside it, resting his chin on the mattress. For a long time, nothing happened. Then, slowly the girl turned her head. She looked at Charlie. He looked back. And then her hand reached out. Just once. She touched his ear. A week later, the hospital called. The girl had begun to talk again. And all she wanted to talk about was the dog with the golden fur who had waited by her side. The morning Maya woke up with Charlie asleep beside her, she had to convince herself it was real. She didn't move for several seconds. She just lay there, staring at the golden fur pressed up against her legs, listening to his slow, deep breathing. It had been 2 weeks since they had found each other again, and Maya still woke up half expecting it all to disappear. Like a dream. But Charlie never left her side. Not when she made coffee. Not when she stepped out onto the porch. Not even when she took the laundry out or ran down to the store. If Maya so much as moved, Charlie followed. Always watching. Always guarding. It was like the 7 years they'd spent apart had been erased, and yet, they lingered too. In this way his eyes never quite softened. In how he jolted awake from dreams, panting. In how his tail wagged slowly as if unsure. Maya had reached out to the shelter again after bringing him home, asking about the years in between. The old volunteer who remembered him cried on the phone when she heard they'd reunited. That dog, she said, he never gave up hope. He never bonded with anyone else the same way. We all knew he was waiting for someone. Now we know who. Zoe, now a fully grown young woman in her early 20s, visited every weekend. She brought Charlie his favorite snacks, jerky, peanut butter sticks, and stuffed toys. He recognized her right away. The moment she stepped out of her car, Charlie ran straight toward her, tail wagging furiously, whining with joy. Zoe dropped to her knees, laughing and crying at once. "Do you still remember me?" she whispered into his fur. "After all this time?" Charlie answered with a big, slobbery lick to her face and then wouldn't stop circling her, sniffing, pressing his head into her chest. Their bond, once paused by time and circumstance, had picked right back up like an old song, familiar and beautiful. Maya knew she couldn't go back in time and fix the pain she had caused, but she could give Charlie the best days of his life now. She took him on long walks every morning, even when her knees ached. She cooked him warm meals on rainy days. She even signed up for a small dog photography session at the local park, capturing moments she never wanted to forget again. For the first time in years, Maya laughed freely. The dark clouds that had followed her for so long finally began to lift. But Charlie was older now. His muzzle had grayed, his steps slower. Though he still chased the occasional squirrel or barked at passing cars, he tired quicker. On one especially bright afternoon, Maya watched as he sat under the oak tree in the backyard, his eyes following birds in the sky, ears twitching. She walked over and sat beside him, resting her head on his shoulder. "You waited so long for me," she whispered. "I wish I hadn't made you." Charlie let out a low groan of contentment, leaned his head against her, and closed his eyes. She stayed with him until the sun dipped low behind the fence and fireflies began to blink in the dusk. That night, as Maya tucked him into the soft blanket by her bed, Charlie didn't curl up like usual. He lay stretched out, eyes fixed on her. She knelt down and held his face gently in her hands. "You okay, buddy?" she asked, voice soft. He licked her fingers and then rested his head in her lap. In the early hours of morning, Maya awoke to a strange stillness. No soft thump of a tail. No gentle panting. Just silence. She sat up quickly and looked down. Charlie lay peacefully, as if asleep. But when she touched him, he didn't stir. A cold rush of grief washed over her. He was gone. The vet said it was likely his heart, gentle and worn after years of waiting, finally at peace now that he was home. Maya buried him under the oak tree he loved so much, wrapped in the blanket he used to sleep in, with a picture of the three of them, her, Zoe, and Charlie, tucked beneath his paw. Zoe held her tightly as Maya sobbed into the earth. "He waited for you," Zoe whispered. "He held on until he knew you were okay. That's how much he loved you." In the days that followed, Maya felt the emptiness more than anything else. The house was quiet. The leash hung unused. His food bowl sat clean and untouched. But slowly, the grief softened into something warmer. gratefulness. The kind of pain that reminds you how lucky you were to love something so deeply. She began volunteering at the same shelter she once left him at. Every week, she walked dogs who had lost their homes. She sat with the shy ones. She played with the rowdy ones. And she always told them the same thing: you matter. Someone's going to love you. Just like I loved Charlie. Eventually, Maya started a small rescue organization, Charlie's Second Chances. She poured her heart into it, saving dogs who had been forgotten, abandoned, or overlooked. For every dog that found a home, she thought of Charlie. Of his quiet patience. His loyalty. His unwavering heart. One spring evening, as Maya sat on her porch watching the sunset, she thought of that moment, 7 years ago, when she drove away from the shelter, leaving a piece of her soul behind. She remembered how her hands shook, how her heart broke. And now, years later, she realized something profound. Charlie had never truly left her. His love had followed her, protected her, changed her. And now it lived on in every dog she helped, in every life she touched. Sometimes, in the quiet of the night, when the wind rustled through the oak tree leaves, Maya would swear she heard soft paws on the floor. A faint jingle of a collar. And a warmth beside her, like a ghost curling up to say, I never forgot you either. And she'd smile through her tears. Because she knew, some bonds can never be broken. Not by time. Not by distance. Not even by death.